Alrighty, good morning, folks. Just finished at the gym a little bit ago, and I got that kind of familiar right-sided low back, mid-back pain that I've been it's on and off. It's not bad. It's just annoying. And what I was finally able to confirm, because again, one of the hardest things I've been dealing with is like, how do I reproduce this move? Because like nothing there, like nothing, like the typical kind of cardinal plane movement doesn't really reproduce my symptoms at all. So what's a guy to do? Uh, let's see here. So what I ended up finding out was as soon as my arm hits about my right arm or my left really hits this 90-degree plane, it reproduces my symptoms. So I ended up doing this with a 45-pound dumbbell instead of a 40, instead of a kettlebell, but we use a kettlebell here where if, all right, that there's a touch of a symptom there, and particularly when I bring up my left knee, not so much my right, but more so my left. Okay, let's see here. So a touch of a symptom and a little more. So the thought today was we're going to do some accessory work, some core work, and some sort of mobility work. The mobility work is probably going to be some sort of like posterior hip stretch. The accessory work is probably going to be a Z press, really emphasizing like core stability, and or kind of teasing out at what weight or range of motion do my symptoms tend to pop up. And then I'll keep using these bands here, and I'll do like a pal off press type thing. And this is where again, like I have come to recognize that my left side is generally tighter than my right side, but not so much that or how about this? I'm surprised that it is as tight as it is, but I do wonder how much of like my symptoms regarding my like hip and low back are because my left side is stiff and my right side's compensating for it. So this is where, right? All right, no symptoms there. That's dandy. I have no idea how many reps I did between the two arms, to be honest with you. That was with 8 pounds. Again, no real symptom. So the question is it a range issue? Where at a particular range, I have greater symptoms? Or is it a load issue where, hey, 8 through 12 pounds is no problem. As soon as I hit 40, that's the issue. So the other advantage of the Z press, right? And this is kind of something I've been looking for in terms of like the general idea of like, not just stretching, but mobility work is what can I do that hits a lot of things at once, because I hate stretching and it bores me to tears. And it's like, all right, here we go. So right now, with my legs out in front of me, I'm slouched. So if I want a Z press, I gotta come up a little taller. I'm getting a kind of a groin stretch, hamstring stretch. All right. And I will say my like left oblique is on fire there. And because of the counterbalancing, right, like my left quad was going crazy too. All right, a lot of good right oblique work there. All right, I already did overhead presses today, so my shoulders are kind of fatigued already. So this is kind of the adding insult to injury. All right, making sure we kind of catch our breath a little bit between each round. What are we at? 20 pounds and still no symptoms. So again, this might be more of a load issue. A load issue than a particular range of motion. Of all things, one of the things that it'll occasionally get me with, and this is why I was kind of confused. I was like, because I'll turn one time and I'll roll over in bed and I'll get that little zing, and then there's another time I'll roll over in bed and there's nothing, and if I try and reproduce it, it just kind of catches me. So I can't put a particular, I haven't been able to put a particular activity on it that's like specifically spine based, but with arm movement, that's when I've noticed that. So I am wondering how much of this is like an arm muscle thing, like a shoulder blade, shoulder muscle. Is it a kind of a spinal erector? Is it a core issue? Like what's going on? All right. Right, okay. So I had just the tinge of a symptom as I went to my setup, so I'm wondering if this is more of a core-based thing, because after like I felt that pain, I kind of braced my core a little more. But nothing. And this is one of the things that's like extremely vexing to me, that I can't reproduce it. But it's at least a start. So this will probably be my accessory work here, where we're emphasizing, you know, some shoulder work, some core work, this, that, and the other. We'll do a little more core work, and then finish out with some hip stretching, because, you know, throughout the day yesterday I was just kind of stretching because I'm like, wow, I can't believe how tight I am. My left calf is significant, like my whole left leg is just so much tighter than my right side. My hip flexors, I don't think, like my quads and my hip flexors aren't great, but not bad. But it's definitely my glutes that are not good. We got 7. All right, here we go. So what I'm possibly learning from this is I don't brace as well as I think I do. Okay. So we're at 35 pounds right now. And again, as long as I keep a core braced, I've had no issues. Alrighty, so this will be likely the last set of Z presses before we move on to some other stuff. I do want to maybe work on a little shoulder mobility. So it might be like flexibility, mobility, whatever you want to call it, core work, and kind of bounce back and forth between those two. I didn't really feel like getting up and down like 800 times doing the Z press here. All right, we'll probably just do like 3 reps and move on. Nothing. So again, it's like as long as my core is braced, I'm fine. Alright. Cool. Unfortunate that I couldn't like reproduce it, but at the same time, I know it's reproducible through movement. Alright, for our shoulder mobility work, we'll bring out the hammer. Alright, so again, the idea. Just trying to let those triceps stretch out a bit. Let that lat stretch out. Oh, this feels good. It's kind of like a little wiggly waggly stretch, nothing overtly specific. Just kind of stretching out the shoulders, getting some of that external range of external rotation, range of motion going back in the shoulders. Interesting. So I definitely need to, I'm probably gonna end up getting a shorter one of these clubs here, / lighter. So the thought being, again, watching a couple videos, I think I was trying to shoot my hands too high because I was using too much arm rather than like letting my hips and body help me with the move. But if I'm here, right, and I keep my arms close to my head, right, I can get the weight to here and I don't have to worry about the I don't have to worry about the ceiling. But overall, I think this is just like too heavy for me right now. So something to keep. Oh, let's see here. So got my good old steel pipe, and I'm going off track here, but this is why I don't really like stretching and mobility work and core work, because it's just like, oh, there's so many other fun things I can do. Nope. And admittedly, this is probably more of a what would be considered like a light to medium club as opposed to a mace. Anyways, back to some core work. Alright, so I got my good old 30-pound tubing. I didn't pull out my handles, but I do have this daisy chain that I was using for the reverse Nordics. And I'm stepping off to the side. So I do feel that really well. My left oblique, when my left side is facing the anchor or the bags, and now when my right side faces it, there we go. You can feel that. You can feel my right side kicking in. But I will say it does feel like my left side has to work harder. I'm gonna step off the mat here just a bit, maybe. I'm gonna step back on the mat. Okay, so this is where I feel some tension, but I'm not like being crushed by it. So again, just taking a couple of breaths. To kind of work on that stability, core engagement with breathing, right? So we're just not having a valsalva every time. curious what some lifts might feel like. And number 5. All right, good stuff. So I do want to work on some posterior hip mobility, but I'm also curious about some side bending flexibility as well. So we're going to grab the club again. So legs just feel stable. Right. This is probably the one thing I don't like about hoodies. So again, all right, so working on that like tall spine, hamstring mobility, but we're also going to get some side bending, stretching, and strengthening. All right. So, didn't really feel like I was getting what I was looking for. So, let's move on to our glute stretches. So, this is where I'm at. Right? If I try and sit back and eat, like this is just a really good glute stretch right now. Right, it doesn't have to be much more difficult than this, but like I said, I've come to realize like I used to be able to like get my left hip extended behind me even more. I used to be able to lay flat, so just kind of a realization that I do need to work more on this, even though it's kind of boring. But it's also where, like, in terms of the used to conversations, like, yeah, I used to have more time, where, like, even if I was studying, I could take 1 to 2 minutes of break from the material, or, like, stretch while I was studying, generally be mobile while I was studying. Whereas now, you know, if I'm working an 11-hour, if I'm scheduled to work an 11-hour day, all right, so this is where, before we get into that whole conversation, right? My left hip is just stopping me right here. And this is where, again, I just go back to like, my hips are stiff. But yeah, if I'm working an 11-hour day, right, it takes me at least 30 minutes to get to work. So that's a 12-hour day right there. And then we're talking about like, oh, let's, if I'm working 8 to 7, the latest I can get up is 6:40. 6:40, so I can be at work by 8. And I work until I treat until 7. By the time I clean up, pack up, and whatnot, it's 7:15. I'm home by 7:45. Generally sitting down to dinner by around 8. Now it's, I finished dinner, pack up my stuff. It's now 8:30, 8:45. And if my alarm's going off at 7 the next day, I gotta be up by, 5:30, 5:40. So it's like, cool, I have 45 minutes. Do I want to do stuff that kind of like invigorates me, or do I want to just kind of chill out for the day? So I know it's kind of the point of creating this channel. Here's maybe 15 to 20. Here's, get ideas of things you can do, but that you don't have to do. All right. Yeah, that was pretty decent today. I do need to work on more stretching, so that might be the mobility aspect maybe a little more emphasized. What's the word I want to use for it? I'll probably be what, mobility, core / accessory work, corrective work, that kind of deal. So, dandy. If you did what I did, great. You did your own thing, great. You're just starting, looking for ideas, motivation, discipline, or a community to support you. That's what we're here to do. Help each other be a little better every day. So, good job today. Keep working hard, and we will see you next time.